All right. Hello, hello. Welcome everyone to not a happy hour show, but a special show where I hope we can all learn something, myself included. We're going to learn about a little something called the secret weapon. We have with us Mr. Jonni Saks making his second appearance, I guess. So it's not necessarily your debut live, but your second appearance. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Really appreciate you having me on. I really want to get a good message out to the community, so that's what I'm here to do. I want to educate everybody, but don't worry too much. It won't be too much because at the end of the day, is very simple. So I can't wait for everyone to understand and see what we got because we got a great new tool in Hex.
Well, that's what I'm looking forward to. Is if possible, to make it a more concise explanation, because that's a lot of the feedback that I've heard personally so far. And we also have to discuss this Mr. Crypto Coffee OG, what, 30,000 subs, something like that?
Yeah, 32.
32, my bad. So welcome, man. I wanted to have you, on with the stream because I've been, of course, as most of the Hexagon population has witnessed Johnny's tweets and unveiling over the past week or so. But I liked your interaction, your questions. Like, you're really, looking deep, as you always do with these kinds of things. And I just figured having you here would, be great conversation for
Yeah,
expanding on what he's about to tell us.
I think a lot of people need a TLDR, man. I appreciate the 90-minute video. It was awesome. But I'm not gonna lie, I've been really busy, moving and all that, and just a lot going on, working with the Amicus Brief petition, selling courses, and making my own content that I just didn't have time. So I'm glad I actually have you here, and thanks for spending your time to further clarify, because it's going to take repetition, right?
Yes.
I believe you're onto something. I just I need to understand it for myself. So I'm hoping that this conversation can help me to help everybody else as well, because I think everyone's probably got a lot of the same questions I might have. What I do know is that Comm, of all things, was the secret weapon, and I did not see that one coming. So
I like it. I like it. And because I guess, as long as people just didn't, mint it and dump it, a lot of Hexagons should have a lot of calm and should hopefully be able to participate with this. But if not, it's fairly cheap because the supply is, quite in the, what is it, quadrillions, I believe. So,
About 80 quadrillion right now.
yeah. Well, before we get too far into it, Johnny, can you tell us just like a little bit about yourself really quick? Obviously, you had your amazing 90-minute video, and I would encourage everyone after this to go see that video that Coffee just was talking about. If you're not familiar with it, even if you are familiar with it or have seen it, I mean, I've seen it multiple times and I'm still trying to get it. So, but, tell us, I guess your crypto origin really quick. Let's not go down, the history book, get into it too deep, but your crypto history, and then I guess, what made you pursue the secret weapon.
Sure. Yeah, definitely. So my crypto history is very similar to a lot of people's in the fact that I got in at the top of the 2017 bull market. So December 2017, it's at the top. Everyone's saying, hey, get in, look at this thing. I look into Bitcoin. I had heard about it before. This story you hear from everybody. They heard about it early, but they didn't do anything about it when they heard about it. So when I got into it and I started looking into what Bitcoin was all about, I was like, wow, this really is revolutionary. And I just dove in and started learning as much as I could. And there's this funny thing that happens where when you start learning about Bitcoin, you just start learning more about markets in general. I kind of just fell into the rabbit hole, looking into all that. But the method of learning when it comes to crypto, there's no like textbooks for this. There's no, you're not going to read a book and get all the answers, So what do you have to do when you're trying to learn about crypto? You have to look for the influencers, really. You have to look for the people who are talking about it the most. So I was just looking for, the people like who out there knows what they're talking about, who has all the information, and I just went through kind of the list of influencers, kind of trying to absorb what are they saying, what is this all about, and I ended up along the way. One of my favorites became Ivan on Tech, and through him, he ended up mentioning with Richard Hart one day, and that's where things really kind of took a turn, because I went and checked out Richard Hart, and I see him on stream, and I see this guy. He's dressed very fancy, sitting in a throne, and at first, the initial reaction is like, okay, who does this guy think he is? And like, all right, but it didn't take me long. Like, I didn't have that kind of like, okay, I don't like this guy, immediate reaction. I actually took the time to listen. It seemed a little goofy at first, but after listening for a few minutes, it was really easy for me to realize that this guy knew exactly what he was talking about. And so I just kept listening in, and stream after stream, learning more and more. And of course, that led me to learning about Hex. And it took I had been listening to him way before Hex launched, but up to the launch, I still really didn't know what it was going to be all about. And so when it finally launched and I looked into it, what I like to do is I like to just dive into all the details, and I like to see, okay, let's see how good this thing really is. And I like to think that I'm really good at figuring out if this thing actually has legs, and if it can sustain for the long term. And when I looked into it, it was flawless in my opinion. I really couldn't find any flaws. People wanted to say the flaws of him holding a large amount of the supply and things like that. I knew there was no concerns there. So I was just blown away. I was really just blown away by what Hex is. And so my goal was to get on Twitter and start telling people all about it. Just start putting out my commentary on what was good about it, how I think it competes with Bitcoin. If you go on my Twitter page, you'll see the banner that I have where I'm saying that Hex competes with Bitcoin, because I think it does. So that's my crypto history when it comes to discovering Hex and discovering what crypto is all about, really.
Yeah, I mean, if I go back on my Twitter follows, I think you were one of the first 10 in my first 10 people that I followed, just because I use Twitter as a tool. And if, I see people who pretty much know what they're talking about, or I can gain information from, I'm a follow, and I've stuck around. Sometimes I unfollow people because I like to keep my list really small. But of course I followed both of you guys. But just that's a testament to the value that I think you've provided over the past few years since Hex has been around. So let's move on. So you kind of jumped in your video to revealing the secret of the secret weapon, like revealing what the secret weapon is, because you were going to talk about it basically for the rest of the time. And if you're going to talk about it for the rest of the time, obviously the secret's got to be let out, because there's a very key ingredient. So could you, for those who may not know for whatever reason, tell us what the secret weapon is in Hex? And then I have a follow-up that's probably the most requested question initially after that.
Sure. So first off, I'm well aware of the weight of that video. I knew it was going to be hard to receive, so don't worry. I do know, I'm aware of that. And I came here when I put out that video. The purpose is to put out a comprehensive video first that just is a full explainer, so that video goes in full into all the details of what this thing's all about. But I knew that it was going to be hard to digest that for an audience. I also put out a poll before I did the video, asking what was the best format to reveal it, and most people voted that they would like a 15-minute video. So I was aware that video was going to be a lot to digest, but I just wanted to get it out there as a full, comprehensive thing for anyone who is going to be able to dive all the way in. They're going to get the full details. And then from there, this isn't just a one-hit wonder kind of thing. I do plan to put out a lot more content and put out little tidbits, 5-minute things here and there that just kind of touches on it more and more. So it will be explained and it will be understood, because at the end of the day, it is very simple. So that video was just laying out the landscape, really. But when it comes to what the secret weapon is, Comm is the coin that supports the secret weapon. But the secret weapon, the reason I'm calling it that is because that's the plan to execute on how we're going to kind of change the course of Hex, because we can. This is a very powerful tool that we can use as Hex holders. And what's great about it is any Hex that you have sitting in your wallet, if you're not staking it, it's actually not doing anything. But now it can be used to do something productively. And what that purpose is to market Hex to an outside audience. We can actually onboard new users into Hex using this tool.
Okay, so my next question, I guess, is to possibly, if any way possible, even though we haven't taken a full dive in, we're kind of like dipping our foot in. It's probably the most popular question I've seen, and I've been asked about this. Is it possible to, say, get a concise explanation of how this works in just a small format paragraph? Obviously the explanation, you can dive in depth. You could probably go for hours, with the coupon spreadsheets and charts and T-share spreadsheets. But what is the quick explanation for those who just seem, to be maybe overwhelmed by, the Comm, the Hex, T-shares, and coupons and all that?
Sure. So simple explanation. It's an automatic marketing system, because when this coin launched, if you could imagine a scenario where nobody would have ever sold their free claimed coins. So if there would have been no sellers.
And you're talking Communis?
Yeah.
Okay.
So if nobody would have sold it, the only thing that would have happened from there is that any money that would have went into it would have gone into new stakes. And that's it. So if I wanted to put it as simply as possible, I would say, if you put $100 into this coin and nobody else is selling it, then that $100 ends up being a long-term stake. And so what we can do with this is so when you go to a conference, you go to a crypto conference, you have a bunch of people around who are trying to get the message out about Hex, for example, and that it's a great coin. You could be talking to a potential new onboard, and you can tell them all about Hex, how it's got this high yield, how it's great. You can stake it till you make it. But at the end of the day, if they don't use it, it's really hard to get them to care. And so with this, what you could do is you could say, put some money into Comm, and that new user can come and they would actually be forced to use Hex by staking it to then claim that Comm. And so you have a scenario where if nobody was ever selling it, it could go straight to what I'm calling this 100% coupon rate, which would mean that you get a free 15-year stake. And so why do we want to give away a free 15-year stake? Well, it would be to onboard a new user and get the benefit of the new user. And we wouldn't care that stake is out 15 years because it's not going to have any impact on today. So I see on the chat there, the TLDR is don't dump Comm. That is the TLDR, okay? But I don't rely on that ideal, so I want to make that clear too. And that's why I've laid the landscape out of what the plan is, because it's not going to rely on nobody dumping. And so you have two functionalities with Comm. You have the functionality of the repo market, and you have the functionality of automatic marketing. The automatic marketing is the goal, but the repo market is what we get to benefit with in the meantime on the journey towards that goal. And so,
and I was gonna say we'll dive into it if you have the whatever you would like to present to walk through. We'll certainly get to that. Coffee, I think you were ready to ask a question there.
Yeah, I just want to give anyone watching just a quick primer, okay? So there's this coin called Comm, C-O-M, Communis. You can go to getcomcoin.com if you want to claim yours for free. And only Hex stakers can claim this coin. Only Hex stakers can claim Comm. You can mint 25% of it when your stake starts, and you can mint the other 75% of it when your stake ends. So I think the appealing thing that Jonni Saks was trying to portray was that if a user starts a stake and can immediately claim some value of Comm, let's say they start a $100 stake and they can immediately claim $20 worth of Comm. That Comm can be looked at like a coupon because you're saying, hey, if you do this stake, you're gonna automatically get this much Comm, and this Comm is worth this many dollars. So it makes it like an attractive offer to get somebody to start a stake. Now you can stop me if I'm wrong about any of this, but the coupon rate term just basically means that, hey, it's more attractive. Hey, you should get into Hex. You should start a stake, not only because Hex is awesome, but if you do, you get, $50, $100 worth of this Comm coin based on, how big your stake is. And that's kind of where I dropped off. I'm like, I started to lose understanding because I'm like, how do you get people to care about the Comm coin and not just dump it right away forever every time they claim it?
Sure. Yeah, so essentially, to put it into even simpler terms, what we can do as a community now is we can find our customer acquisition cost for Hex. That's what this gives us the power to do. We're now able to find what is the customer acquisition cost, because that coupon rate is going to determine that. So right now it's very low, it's at 5%, but that's because we have no support in the system currently. Right now, it only costs, based on the current liquidity landscape, it only costs $60,000 right now to send that coupon rate to a 100% coupon rate.
You have a spreadsheet or screen share with that there, Jonni, you could throw up here?
While you're looking for that, really quick as well for background knowledge, this was the Comm coin was not developed by Jonni. It was developed by a longtime Hex developer named Kodiak. So let's just be clear about that part.
Yes.
Yeah, let's touch on that real quick. So, yeah, just to kind of give an intro to this. So yeah, I'll touch on that. I am not the founder of Comm. I am the person that happened to look into it and discover what I believe to be the power behind that coin is. So the actual founder of the coin is Kodiak, and he's a developer who's been a part of the Hex community since the beginning. And in a lot of ways, he's been in the background. And I've in the past seen some tools that he's made for Hex that have been pretty cool tools that help to view different data points. And so because of that, when I saw that Comm had launched, I already knew, or I was already aware of Kodiak's work in the past. So I knew that this wasn't just some sort of another meme coin or something like that.
He's got street cred within our community, you could say. He's been around here for a long time, and
right.
I trust him. I mean, he built backup Hex. He built so many other things. It's solid code, and it's relatively a simple protocol. It's just kind of like Hedron. You can mint Hedron when you have a Hex stake. Well, there's another coin. You can also mint Comm when you have a Hex stake. And so, yeah, Johnny's the mastermind that figured out, I guess, its narrative, its use case, or whatever that might be, the secret weapon aspect of it. Because up until now, a lot of people were kind of losing interest in Comm. Like everyone. I mean, I've even been forgetting to claim my Comm when some stakes were ending. I claimed it all at the beginning, and I've been forgetting as stakes are ending. So don't forget that you also have not only Hedron to claim as a Hex staker, but you've got Comm to claim. You've got 2 additional free coins that may or may not have a significant dollar value in the future, and they already do have a dollar value. You can trade them today. And Comm has been out for a while. There's also a staking component to Comm. It's a very simple staking component where if you want to stake your Comm coins, I believe you just get a flat 5% APY no matter what. That might be relevant later, but that's about all I know about the Comm coin.
Yeah, and Jonni, in your video, what's really interesting is with the supply of Comm being as high as it is, and you referenced this in your video, and I'm sure we can pull up a chart here in a little bit, but the price has actually performed rather well compared to a lot of other coins, and it's kind of stair-stepped up and to the right recently, as opposed to a lot of the other coins in crypto, to where they've been down quite a bit. Obviously, the whole market is showing some signs of life here recently, but I'm talking the past 3-5 months, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I think if you want to go back since June, that was kind of the floor price. So since June, it's actually up versus Pulse 95x currently, and the highest it ever was about a 50. Sorry,
close to 70, I think. But I'm gonna.
Oh, sorry, 345x versus Pulse was the top.
Pull this up here. So that's the Comm versus PulseX.
So you can get the dollar from there, the dollar gains.
There's so many charts of this stuff. Let me see. PulseX.
Basically, it was a situation where, and there's other data points that we can bring up too, but basically you had a lot of people claim it right when it launched in January, and they almost immediately dumped it all. So this is actually a cool situation we have where you don't really have to see what this coin, it's not like a new launched coin where you have to see what the price is going to do first. We already did that part, and we did that part 11 months ago. And now we have a situation where it already reached a floor. It already got to the bottom from the previous sellers, and it started an uptrend back around June. And that uptrend has led to the, 350x that it's done versus Pulse. Now that's on low liquidity. And the liquidity has always right now it's about $20,000 liquidity. What it was about $20,000, but I've now backed it with liquidity backing myself now just to get this thing rolling. So yeah, if you were putting small money into it, you could have taken out 350x with $20,000 liquidity.
I think anybody would be happy to take such returns. And we can touch on the pools, and I will also touch on Time Pays Me here towards the close. But we have a lot to get through. Excuse me, before then. Let me bring up your show and tell. What are we starting here with, Johnny?
So this is the encompassing plan that I'm calling the secret weapon. So that's what this spreadsheet is. What you're seeing here is you're seeing the range of coupon rates. Okay. So of course, a coupon rate is going to range anywhere from 0 to 100%, and 100%, if the price were to get there, it would mean that a 15-year staker can get that 15-year hex stake for free. Okay.
Right. If which price could get there?
So this is based on the Comm to hex ratio.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to maybe slow it down for people trying to keep up, and just, I know you probably know all this and you can whip right through it, but I'm trying to get the viewers, keep them on board. So, all right, thank you.
Yep. So you have right now where the current Comm to hex ratio price stands, we're at a 5% coupon rate. So I mentioned that it costs right now $60,000 to take the price and send it. So if someone were to market buy $60,000 worth of Comm, it would send the price to the 100% coupon rate. And that would mean that somebody gets a 15-year hex stake for free.
And that's because if they make a 15-year hex stake, the value of the Comm that they get is worth as much hex as the hex stake.
Correct.
Yep.
Now, the reason that we need a plan for this is because it's not adequate to just send the price to 100% coupon rate immediately. And again, the reason we want to get there is because once you get to the 100%, you get to onboard users automatically. And the reason you get to onboard them automatically is because they're not going to deny the free money. Okay.
Well, we know that nobody denies free money. A lot of times people will work incredibly hard for free airdrops, harder than they would have otherwise worked in a legitimate way just to make money sometimes. But yeah, this has been proven.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we know that we know that we can. It sounds like a bold statement, right? To say that we can automatically onboard users, but I'm saying it's not a bold statement because this is what we can do. We can give out the hex for free in the form of stakes. So you're not even giving out liquid supply that they can then dump. You're giving out staked supply. And so that should influence a price chart in hex that actually curves up. So we're looking at, in this spreadsheet, we're looking at the range of coupon rates and the goal that we would want to accomplish before we move to the next level. So right now, based on the common hex price, it's at a 5% coupon rate. And then if you look at the column that says the dollar backing required, that's based on the current price of hex and the current price of comm. And it's saying that we would need $9.8 million right now in liquidity backing comm to secure the 5% coupon rate, meaning that all the legacy stakers currently who are able to claim comm, they would mint their comm and they would sell it, and they would have made 5% of their principal hex stake that is out there for 15 years. Now, that's the dollar backing. The hex backing says that it would need 717 million hex in that last column. So that last column there is saying, here's how much we can either back this with hex or we could back this with dollars, okay? Or there can be a mix of both. But at the end of the day, ultimately, this is the amount that you would need in order to say that all the current existing stakers would be able to exit all their comm. And then what would you be left with if everybody exited? You'd be left with blue skies on a pathway to 100%. So that's what that would be saying. And I'll take any questions from there if anybody didn't.
My question is, I don't get it. So basically,
I'm there, but Coffee said it first. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry. It's probably me. It's probably not you. It is confusing to me. So are we talking about, by backing, you mean providing liquidity, right?
We're talking about providing liquidity. Yes.
Okay. And so I saw a whole bunch of PHUX pools for like 5%, 10%, 15%. Would you mind? That's another kind of wall I ran into, is like, why all these pools, and what are we trying to get to here?
Yep. So I hope everybody can see that on the screen. Looks like it's not wanting to zoom in. But yeah, I don't know if you could see, but it's okay because you can actually just look at this as one pool. So yeah, seems hard to see, but I'll talk through that. So okay, so I put out a bunch of pools on the PHUX platform, okay, and those pools are representing the allocation that would be required to enable the repo market between Comm and Hex. Now, that's the other function I was talking about that this has. It is a repo market between Comm and Hex, because if you allocate your funds accordingly into one of these pools, based on what the pool allocation is, what's going to happen is you have an amount of, in order for a user to claim their comm and get their coupon for the hex, they had to stake more hex than what they put in if the coupon rate is under 100%, which is, for the lifetime of comm, it should spend most of its life under the 100% coupon rate, which means you'll have this repo market. And so let me go back to the other one that you could see better. But basically, those pools are just really representing the highlighted section there, the hex allocation and the com allocation that I have highlighted. So right now we're at the 5%, right? So what you would do is you would go to one of those PHUX pools. You would look for the one called Secret Weapon 5% coupon rate. And that would be telling you to allocate 99% hex and 1% com, which is basically saying, I don't want you to take a lot of risk here. I only want you to take a 1% risk. Take 1% of your hex and put it into the pool. So that's what that's saying. And what happens with that is you end up getting, because of the difference between 100% and 5%, that difference is a 20x. And what this is saying is the user who is going to claim com has to put in 20 times as much hex into a 15-year stake in order to get the 5% back.
And hopefully the chart of volume, the green middle finger, is not a sign of things to come. But there it is on phux.io. Secret Weapon 5% coupon rate.
Nice. Okay.
That pool says 98% to 2%. The allocation called for 1%, but the PHUX platform doesn't let you do 1%. So that's the minimum one, is 2%. So it's basically saying buy 2% com. Now, the way we simplify this is, if you want to, when you think about a repo market, it's really for big money. So big money should be jumping into these pools. Okay. If you're a user that is not, in the category of big money, then you can simplify this as simply as just looking at the sheet, and it's telling you how much com you would buy to contribute to the system. And so it's saying, if you have liquid hex, since we're at the 5% coupon rate, take 1% of your hex and market buy com with it, and then you're done. You've contributed to the marketing system now. Okay. And if everybody were to do that to the point where you end up with 700 million hex, which is shown in that last column, then that would have cleared out all of the legacy stakers. And once you've cleared out all the legacy stakers, you've got blue sky's pathway to 100% coupon rate, because there's no sellers left. And once you've done that, you can now onboard new users automatically. Now, the question becomes, who would want to do this? Who would want to take their money and give it into com just for some other user to take that money? Why would you want to do that? And the idea is, if you want to onboard a user, and that user said, well, why don't you just give me $100 worth of hex, and then I'll use it. Well, you're not going to want to give that user 100 of your own dollars. But what if, instead of you giving 100 of your own dollars, it's 100 people giving one of their dollars? That's what we get to do. We can take a large amount of people to contribute to the automatic marketing. And so I want you to imagine this. That number there in the 5% column, where it says the dollar backing required, I want you to imagine that we got that full backing. Let's say we got the $9.8 million that says, and it went into the pool, or we just got that much money, just bought com while keeping it at that coupon rate. What would happen is all the legacy stakers who wanted to sell would have been able to get out. They would have had all the liquidity to get out. But then they've exited now, and now all the previous stakers, they're out of the way. The legacy existing stakers are out of the way now, and you have a clear pathway where you can now buy com with no sellers on the market available, because the supply is gone. Once you have that scenario, you can now get to the 100% coupon rate very easily, because it's already easy even today. But if you would get that money, it's literally, it could just go to that price immediately with no resistance, with nobody. If you send it to the 100% coupon rate price, there would be nobody to sell it back down, is what that means. And once there's nobody to sell it back down, now you can create kind of a DAO, a decentralized automatic marketing network. I'm calling it a DAM. And what happens in that scenario is we say, you know what, we as a community say, we want to onboard more users. We have a marketing system. What are we going to do? Well, nobody wants to give away a bunch of their own money. But what if 10,000 of us each put in $1?
And we're putting this money into the liquidity pools.
You're just buying Comm.
Buying
market
Comm
buy. Just market buy.
through like it. And who's putting up the liquidity in the liquidity pools? Like how much of that do we need?
Yeah, so the question you're asking is basically distinguishing the complicated version versus the simplified version. The complicated version is for big money, and that's the repo market. That is what we would need to activate the automatic marketing. We need the big money to clear out the legacy stakers. So you have legacy stakers who are sitting there with claimable Comm who haven't claimed yet. And once they do claim, they're going to sell the price down.
But there's also a bunch of people holding that could still sell the price down. You know, like there's a bunch of existing Comm holders that we don't know.
That include this number includes those people.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact,
bonus mentors and all that stuff. Yeah.
This number not only includes those people, but you have to also imagine those people already sold. So this number is actually much lower. These numbers are much lower than what they're showing. So these are maximums. That's actually a great point. Thanks for that, Coffee, because these numbers represent absolute maximums to clear out the legacy stakers. Now, we've already cleared out a lot of the legacy stakers because they sold already when they minted it early on. And to the degree they sold, we have already wiped out a lot of this expense.
But didn't they sell into people that bought, and those people that bought can then just sell again? Like everyone holding Comm.
That was me. So I locked the supply, so I can't sell.
Right. I saw you did that, which is pretty cool. I mean, for people that don't know, Jonni basically took quadrillions of Comm and locked, basically provided liquidity and locked that liquidity, right?
Yeah, so I locked it into Matty Allen's tool, which was Time Pays Me. I did a live presentation on my stream on my channel where I showed myself locking the coins. I locked it up for 8 years with it ended up being a 1% drip per month over the course of 100 months, which is 8 years. And that was 15% of the supply. So these numbers that you're looking at here, imagine those numbers minus 15%. That's the actual new cost or new maximum cost. If you imagine that since my coins are locked up.
Yeah.
Now, I would go as far as to say that the actual cost that you're looking at here is actually way less because you have a lot of stakers in the system who just they're asleep. They're dormant. They have no activity. So when you're looking at these numbers, these are maximums. We don't actually require that much liquidity before we can go to the next levels. If the price chart is telling you that it just doesn't want to go down, then you could just move to the next level. And so it goes back to what I was saying about how this requires $60,000 of a market buy to send it to a 100% coupon rate. If you realize there's no sellers after putting in the 60K, then you don't necessarily need to say that you need all this money backing it. It could be zero cost.
It's probably going to take a series. It's probably going to take a series of maybe smaller spikes, not 60K, but $5,000 buys here and there to trigger any weak hands to shake them out. So it's something that's costly for the average Joe to get. How do we get those sellers weak hands totally out?
That's a great question. That is why this plan is required. So if that wasn't an issue, then Comm itself would already be good. We don't need a plan. We don't need a secret weapon. Okay. But this plan, which is laid out here, that is the answer to your question of basically your question is coming down to, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's coming down to how do we minimize risk for the user who wants to contribute to this system? Is that an accurate representation?
Yeah, I mean, if people are buying Comm, like, how do they not get dumped on? Which means we'd have to squeeze out any plebs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. And that's why these allocations were created. It's to say, hey, we want a marketing system for Hex. We want to have an automatic marketing system, but we don't want to get hurt while we're trying to contribute to it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is saying based on the maximum potential mints and based on the maximum potential dump from the people who can claim the Comm currently, if you allocate according to this plan, which right now says at the 5% rate, you're only taking 1% of your Hex and you're putting it into Comm, it's saying that the chances that they're able to dump from there is very low.
Okay.
And it's because they just don't have the supply. The supply is not there. Now, this is a situation where I don't know how many people have heard this in markets, but you hear this phrase that everybody wants to be next. Nobody wants to be first. That applies to this system. Okay. So what we're dealing with here is, and I think the reason why Comm hasn't gotten support so far is because everybody knows that they're the first to support the system. Now, it is true that if you are the first to support the system, then you are taking a large risk, because even if you're going in with what this would say at the 5% coupon rate, if you're going in with 1% of your Hex, you're very likely to lose that whole 1%. And the reason you'd be very likely to lose it is because you yourself don't have $9.8 million. And so we need a collective effort. Okay, so if the Hex community in a collective effort were to back this with $9.8 million or that 717 million Hex, and that was to the allocation of 1% per person, so each person who's supporting the system, it's 1% of what their supply is, and then we can get it to equal that amount of backing, then you now have a situation where your risk has gone down to very close to zero, virtually zero.
Yeah, 1% at the most, I guess.
Not even, no. So if everybody is, let's say there was one whale. One whale had 717 million Hex. And he went into the 5% secret weapon pool that I have on PHUX. So he takes 717 million Hex, puts it into that pool. Okay. Now he's first. He's the first one. So he handled that job of being the first who takes all the risk. Okay. And by the way, I would go as far as to say he no longer has risk because he had the whole amount of backing required, but let's just not touch on that just yet. But he now became the first person to support the system. And now it's very easy for the next person, the smaller user, to be the next guy. Because now he has a cushion that he can get into the system with to say, all right, well, if nobody else is going to come in after me, at least I have the liquidity to get out.
So this hypothetical whale, right? If you wanted to buy 717 million Hex worth of Comm, he'd be going through that specific 595 liquidity pool? Or is it just like he's going through all of them?
Nope, he's going to one. He's going to the one pool where we are right now. And where we are right now is the 5% pool.
So so if he does put 717 million, and what if there's barely any Comm in that pool?
He buys the Comm. So that's what the allocation is. He takes 1% of his Hex, buys Comm with it, and then the other 99% he takes it and joins the pool with both the 1% Comm and the 99% Hex. And then because he has the entire amount of backing required, it means that the existing supply that can dump doesn't have enough to take all his money. And then the reason it becomes a repo market for him, since he had the full backing, they now, since you're at the 5% coupon rate, it takes a 20x to get from 5% to 100%. And so what it means is any user who is going to be able to claim and dump on him, they had to buy 20 times as much hex as what they put into, or as what they got out of Comm. And so even though he lost, technically he lost his 1% because the users came and claimed and dumped, and now he has lost the 1%. Well, on the hex side, he actually got an increase in his hex value because the user who claimed the Comm had to put in 20 times the amount of hex.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this is doing, is it's basically making a balanced equation. That's what this is. It's a balanced equation where it's saying the amount that can dump on the Comm side, well, that dump power had to be buying power on the hex side.
Right.
And to what degree did it have to be buying power on the hex side? Well, since we're at the 5% coupon rate, it's a 20x multiple. So they had to put in 20 times the amount on the hex side in order just to claim the 5% on the Comm side. And so even though he lost his 1% by buying the Comm, he doesn't care because his hex value just increased as a result.
Okay. And this is assuming the only way to cheat out of this is to sell your Comm for hex primarily. So the person, the cheat, the whatever, that user profile type would they'd have to buy a very large hex stake, and then the only way to dump their Comm would be for more hex. So is the incentive? I mean, I'm having a hard time. Like, how do you sell this to a newbie trying to get in? As like, hey, you should buy hex because you can claim all this coin, which you can then dump for more hex. Like, it's just how do you get someone to care about this?
That's so I don't know if you noticed this, but as you're looking down that Comm allocation column there,
yeah,
you notice that as the coupon rate is increasing, what's happening to the Comm allocation?
Going up.
It's increasing.
Yeah.
And this is something hard to yeah, I wouldn't have expected this, but the math says so you have to follow it. But I would expect that as the Comm price is rising, it means your risk is increasing. However, what this is actually telling you is that as the coupon rate is rising, your risk is actually decreasing. And so, believe it or not, you have a situation where the closer you get to the 100% coupon rate, the more and more Comm you should be buying. And what you're looking at here in these highlighted columns, you're looking at an adjusted allocation, and it's adjusted because there's legacy stakers in the system who can claim. If there wouldn't have been any legacy stakers in the system, there's actually a different allocation for this, which I'm calling the optimal allocation. And it actually, as you get up to 100%, so it's not showing in this image, but I have the spreadsheet that will get out. Everybody will see it. But it actually, once you get to 100%, it says that you should be allocating almost 100% to Comm. And so it actually turns out that the more and more liquidity we get for this, the more and more Comm should be bought. And it actually flips where you should actually be buying more Comm than hex in order to balance this equation, which means when you want to say what the new user should be doing, well, they should be buying the Comm actually. So you're saying we get to onboard the new user to hex, but this is why I've been saying, and this is one of the points I've been saying in some of my tweets. I'm saying this is the Comm hex fusion. We're taking two coins and we're turning it into one. And in turning it into one is in saying that you're always allocating funds to both hex and Comm. Okay. But for the new user, you can simplify it into saying you just buy Comm, okay? But because they used Hex to get the Comm initially, they're already going to be aware of Hex. And so then you can tell them, okay, while you're buying the Comm, you should also take 1% and buy Hex as well. And what happens in that situation is they are now balancing the equation while they're throwing fuel on the fire to continue onboarding more and more users. So they're basically setting up a situation where as they buy more Comm and Hex, they're supporting the marketing to onboard future users as well, while they get to see both of the charts rise together. Because once it hits a coupon rate, you've reached a limit where if you start getting above 100%, everybody can claim it's basically an arbitrage where they can always fix the price back down to 100%, right? And so because of that limit, once you get to that limit, the two prices, the Comm and Hex price, they need to rise together. They both have to rise together in tandem with each other. And so I think it's easy for the user because they can actually just say they can choose to buy both. But it's also easy message because by the time we get there, this is going to be simplified and easy for everybody to understand, especially when you have all that liquidity backing it. What happens is you realize that the price can't go down because it has more backing than what the supply can do to hurt the price.
Yeah, so I've been lost for a little while. Let's go back to what do we need to do as a collective to kick off a process that would spur people's interest in all this? But you need to buy a bunch of Comm with your Hex.
I would put up a banner,
okay,
and I would say, hey guys, right now the coupons rates is at 5%. Take 1% of your Hex and market buy Comm. That would be the simplest message.
Okay. And like, let's say, 1,000 people do this and it adds up to, millions and millions of Hex. The price of Comm is going up.
Yes. And then so as the price rises, then you move to the next level. Now we say, hey guys, we went from 5%. Now we're at 10%. So now instead of 1% of your Hex, take 3% of your Hex and buy Comm.
Just kind of hard. Yeah. That's like, who wants to start that off if they don't see why?
OA.
Yeah.
So
I mean, is this why you were also mentioning Godwell in some of the initial tweets? Someone as powerful that could actually make such a move like this?
Yeah, so I started this campaign around it was the 15th, like mid-September. I think it was around the 15th of September I put out the initial tweet. And then from there I went on a tweet storm. Now, the reason I got excited into putting that out was because initially the plan was to onboard the God Whale. That was the plan. I put out a proposal and it was received. So the God Whale is aware of this. Okay. However, we don't need that. That's what I ended up discovering is that we don't need the God Whale. And I think what's going to happen is he's going to want to see some progression here before he would jump in. Okay. So that's, yes, if the God wanted to back this, we know that he has 700 million Hex that he can back the 5% coupon rate with. And from there, everybody would see, okay, this thing can't go down because there's not enough supply to put it down. So why not start buying it? If you have no risk that the price is going to go down, why not start buying and see what happens? And so, yeah, this goes back to the point about being first versus being next. This would have basically been secured to take off if we have that big whale that can start it off as the first user backing it. If you don't have that, what you can do is you can just market buy according to this, the 1%, take 1% of your Hex, market buy Comm, and you see where it goes from there. And then as it grows slowly, which it should. It should not grow quickly. It should grow slowly. And it just becomes a snowball effect.
At what point do we ask people to provide like liquidity for all this? Like, where does that come in? Other than just buying.
I would say that you don't have to do that. I would say that if you're trying to distill the message down to the average user, I would say that message should always just be to market buy and don't worry about those PHUX pools. Okay. And then what's going to happen is as they're, so you just get the message out there. Hey, right now, currently we're at the 5% coupon rate. That says to balance the equation, you should take 1% of your hex and buy. And as more and more people do that, the price is going to be rising. And as the price rises, you realize that it's not falling below a certain point. Okay, and then you have chartists out there that are saying, the chart looks like it's building a floor here, and it's not breaking down below this price level. And so you just go to the next coupon rate at that point. And then you just keep on working up, buying more and more according to the allocation to minimize the risk. Okay, so you literally just follow this allocation plan, and you work your way up through that price chart until it gets close to 100% coupon rate. So no, it does not require that anybody actually joins those PHUX pools. Those PHUX pools are there really for the big money who wants to back this. And the big money, should be sophisticated enough to understand that this is a repo market. In the sense that when they put up their liquidity, according to this allocation plan, you have a balanced equation that says anybody who can dump the COM by minting it had to put way more money on the hex side, and the amount of money that they put on the hex side balances it out in such a way where the amount of loss they would have taken on the COM side is equaled out by the amount of gain that they had on the hex side.
So there's really not enough COM to dump down after you get 717 million hex comes into the 5% coupon rate. There is no more COM able to push the price below that.
Not unless they're new stakers. Legacy stakers, no.
And all the new stakers would have had to buy hex, which would make up the price. Okay.
Yep.
You
nailed it just now.
That clicks. I like it.
It's hard to. Yeah, I mean, it's just a chicken and egg problem. How do you get the first person to because I've of my limited liquid hex, right? It's a tough sell for. I can maybe understand the value of this, especially okay, if we all do this together, sure, it works out. But try explaining this to everyone else when most people want things kind of simpler. It's just how do we oversimplify this for people and convince them that buying some COM with their liquid hex is a good idea, whereas I mean you can show them the math and stuff, but it's a lot at once, and it's
we could scratch this whole spreadsheet and we could just say buy COM.
Yeah, right. But buy COM so that you stabilize the price of COM above a certain rate.
I would just say it's as simple as just buy COM, because right now our message is that simple on the hex side. Our message on the hex side is just buy hex and stake it. But it's actually even more simple on the COM side, because you don't have to think about staking it. There is staking with COM, but that's only for the people who are minting it. But if you're a new person buying it, you just buy
what
it.
about staking with COM? I mean, if people are making yield on this COM, does that factor into the potential that they could? Because can they unstake COM whenever they want to? There's no terms, right?
They can unstake it whenever they want to. However, the staking in COM only pays out 5%
APR.
APR.
Yeah.
And that 5% APR doesn't kick in until their first end stake. So they don't even. What happens is when you go to mint your COM for making a hex stake,
mm-hmm.
You then go to mint your COM, and it's going to bring up a question when you're in the process of minting it, and it's going to say, do you want to stake the supply? And you can choose to stake whatever percentage of the supply initially.
Yeah.
But if your choice was not to stake, then you do not have the opportunity to stake after that question was asked initially.
That happened too with the original mints, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's been so long since I really cared about COM, but I think I staked it as well. So they're just earning more. I'm just worried about people dumping. You know what I mean? Like
that's what I got solved here, man. That's what this is solving for. It's solving for the dumping potential. So it's telling you how much backing you need to create a floor price. And once you have a floor price, you have no concerns if the price is already at that floor price. Now that word floor price, that phrase floor price, it is dynamic, because if more people make new stakes, then they are actually increasing the supply of Comm, which means they can now drop the floor price.
Yeah.
But the only floor pricing we're concerned with is the floor pricing that the legacy stakers created, the stakers who are already here before we have the backing. Because once you
change
the new stakers,
can't people change their minds though too? Like once if everyone's buying 1% of Comm with their hex or whatever, then yeah, they can say, "Oh, I'm just going to diamond hand it forever," but they can just change their mind on a whim whenever they want to. Like, yeah, we should all buy Comm and hold it forever, but what if someone just decides, no, I don't want to anymore, I'm going to cheat?
That doesn't change the floor price. That has no effect on the floor price. And so you still have a situation where you can measure your risk very easily. So you can have people coming and going all day long, and what that's going to show up on as the chart, show up on the chart as is a bunch of this on the chart, just up and down, up and down. But what you're not going to see on the chart is you're not going to see up, down, falling over.
Yeah, just because there's no supply left.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the basic concepts make sense. Like if you can get everyone that was going to sell, and the only way to mint more is to buy and stake hex, that would make up for the cost of them selling the Comm, because the price of hex would go up. And it sounds like it's only tied to hex primarily in all these liquidity pairs. Would it matter if there were other like dollar liquidity pairs or pulse liquidity pairs and all stuff like that?
Yeah, so dollar backing is superior. That's what you want to see. Now, the way that the pools were set up on PHUX is it's set up with hex versus Comm pairs, and that's because it simplifies so that they don't have to move around so much. It simplifies the allocation plan, because if it was based on dollars, you have to move around a lot as the hex price goes up or down. But if it's just allocated with hex and Comm, it's very static, not so dynamic. Okay.
So these things on PHUX that you made, all these pairs, this is just to signal to people, hey, if you want a 45% coupon rate, buy this much percent of Comm? Or like, are these things that you need people to actually provide liquidity for? That was just more of like an advertisement type of thing.
They're there so that it lays out the plan so that you can look at the price chart of the Comm versus hex ratio. You can see where we currently stand, and that would tell you the appropriate pool to join. And so right now the current pricing, and I might want to bring up share my screen again on that one, but the current pricing right now is at a 5% coupon rate. And so you'd want to join, if you want to go back to that screen you were on, you'd want to join that 5% pool.
So we need everyone to buy Comm, hold it, but they don't have to put it in this pool.
Not at all. I would say that's for the more intermediate to advanced user, or just the big money who wants to enjoy the repo market. But for the average user, the message is as simple as the 5% coupon rate calls for a 2% allocation to Comm, which means just take 2% of your hex and market by Comm.
I should probably finish watching the second half of your video.
Now, if I'm trying to think of like how I was going to ask this question, and it escaped me. Just 1 second. But yeah, sorry. Go ahead. I'll think of it.
Can I let's see how do I put this? Just let's imagine something, right? So can we go back to the spreadsheet real quick? So how much hex does the OA have? Liquid. It's about 500 billion hex. Coffee, you want to tell me the maximum number you see there for the amount of hex backing that's required?
Sorry, what?
14.3.
14.3 billion hex. So that number is the maximum requirement to back this at a 100% coupon rate. Meaning, if we get 14.3 billion hex in here, then any new minting comm has to come from new users coming into hex, or new stakes being made in hex. And those new stakes being made in hex have to be heavily weighted towards the 15-year mark. Because the way this works, and actually we haven't touched on this point yet, the way that the comm rewards pay out, and by the way, this is why this system can be so powerful. The way the payouts work is that a person who is going to mint comm for making a 15-year hex stake gets 50 times as much comm as a person who takes that same amount of hex and only makes a 1-year hex stake. So which means that if you have this thing fully backed at a 100% coupon rate, then the people who are coming to claim it, they have to be claiming it by making a very long hex stake, very close to 15 years.
Yeah.
15 years.
Which is, that's the best possible thing you can do. And then I think short hex stakes, right, 90 days and lower, don't even get the option to claim comm.
Right, it's 180 day.
180.
180 days.
So a 15-year hex staker gets 50 times as much as a 1-year staker. And your mind is probably going to want to think of that linearly, but it's not linear at all, because the difference between a 15-year staker and a 10-year staker, I believe it was let's see. The difference between a 15-year staker and a 10-year staker is a 2x. So the 15-year staker gets twice as much comm as a 10-year staker. That mechanic of giving out so much more of the supply to the 15-year stakers is going to create a future in hex where you see the average stake length growing instead of decreasing. And right now, the current scenario we have in hex over the last year or so now is that you have a decreasing average stake length, which is why we have a downward moving price chart. If you can turn that average stake length into a growing average stake length, where instead of the average stake length getting lower, it's actually increasing and approaching the 15-year mark, you're getting a lot of supply off the market, and we should see a growing amount of 15-year hex stakes in order for them to claim the comm. And so if the OA were to take let's just call it 15 billion hex and back comm with that hex, it immediately turns into a situation where anyone who wants to come and get a piece of that has to be making a 15-year hex stake. So I want you to imagine that the OA backs it at a 50% coupon rate. It would mean that anyone who's coming to claim that after the legacy users have already minted and sold all their comm, any new users have to be putting up twice as much hex staked for 15 years in order to capture that 50% coupon. So basically, the OA is capable of funding this marketing budget on its own, really.
I don't know if we could rely on that, though.
You wouldn't rely on that, but
I would love to.
For the imagination, because basically it's telling you the power of once we get the liquidity backing, you do have automatic marketing.
Yeah. Just to be clear again, that hex backing, that's a liquidity requirement, right? That's not just you need to buy this much. That's
it. So look, the liquidity. It doesn't have to be liquidity. It can just be market buys. So you can look at this the same as saying if we had this much hex market buy com, it'd have the same effect.
okay. I mean, it's going to be even hard to find that much com side liquidity, I feel, for people that have liquid com. Like,
Meaning you're saying it'd be hard to find sellers?
it'd be hard to find people that have liquid com that want to put it up into hex com liquidity pairs. Like, not many people even know about this to begin with.
Well, they'd just be selling it, right? They would just market sell it. Is that
sure? I guess, yeah. I mean, if you wanted to put it, like, is there any advantage to doing like putting up a single side of liquidity on PHUX and then buying it kind of that way? Like putting up hex only on the hex com pair?
Yeah. The way that PHUX works is I don't think you can single side it. You have to put some com.
You can single side it.
Can you?
Yeah. And yeah.
I'm not sure. I mean, my experience was that you had to put at least 2% of the other coin on the other side.
Maybe I'm just referring to multi-coin pools. I don't know if I've ever tried that with a 2-coin pool.
But why would you want to single side it? Why would that be?
Well, people like don't have any com in their wallet, for example, but they want to help provide liquidity.
Okay. Yeah, I could see that. But you can also just market buy the small amount first, the 1% or so first.
Yeah. All right. So let's start with all the way at the 5%, all the way to the original. Okay. Like, does it matter? Like, I don't know, man. I've got my head in so many other things right now. It's I haven't came to this in a while. I haven't even thought about com. So yeah, on top of moving and all this stuff, other stuff going on, it's still hard for me to wrap my head around. But I'll probably just have to watch your video 2 or 3 times over to fully grasp it. But it just, I mean, there's points that I understand, and I'm like, yeah, I get that. I get how there's a floor price. I get how the dynamics work. I guess I'm just like, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to speak to how the automatic marketing works with an analogy, right? So imagine you create your own coin. You just make your own coin, and right now we know that you can go on gopulse.com and you can make your own coin, right? Let's say you make your own coin, and you want other users to also come into your coin. The chances of you getting other users to come into your coin is very near zero, unless you're going to be a hype man, hyping it up with a team of other people who are also hyping it up and then showing off the chart, even though you're the one that was buying it. You're showing off a chart that went up a lot on your own purchases. That's one way to onboard new users. It's basically showing off a price chart that went up a lot, green candles, that's how you can market new users. But let's imagine the other scenario where we have this new tool, which, by the way, this COM hex fusion that I'm talking about does not exist in any other cryptocurrency. This is a new innovation. This does not exist, and this is our new superpower, in my opinion. Because now imagine that same scenario where I make a coin and I just put up some liquidity and I want to get a new user. The best way to get a new user would be to give them some coins. But who do I give the coins to? I don't know how to choose who I give the coins to. Or maybe I do have a good plan on how to get new users and by giving away some of the coins, but it's a very manual process. But what if I told you that just by me buying that coin, it puts it up for grabs for the new user? Now the new user comes along and they can just grab it just because I put it out there. That scenario is what we have with Common Hex. And then it becomes a question of well, can we retain the user? And in the hex scenario, versus if you were to do the same thing with another coin, if you did the same thing with another coin where just by buying it, a new user can claim it, they don't have any reason to be retained, because in the hex scenario, when the user wants to come and claim the hex, or come and claim the comm by buying and staking the hex, they have now retained a 15-year stake in order to claim that comm. And in doing that, they came for the free money, because let's say there was $100 there that they were able to claim from comm, but they had to make the 15-year stake to claim it. They took their free money, but are they going to take it and just run away, or are they now going to watch that 15-year stake accrue value? They now have a 15-year stake out there that they can watch how it accrues value.
Yeah. I mean, I always thought too that, the longer someone is locked in, the more likely chance that they become a net positive amplifier, right? Like, you'd rather have people max length staking just because now they're stuck here, and the emergent property of like socially getting involved with the community just because, hey, we're all stuck with each other for 15 years. Are you also saying that we need to paint a bunch of green candles on the comm chart, like to make as advertising too? I mean, is that like, I don't want me to put it bluntly, but like, if we all buy this chart, it goes up a lot. It's just a shiny thing to attract. It's like a billboard for new people.
Yeah, but believe it or not, comm. All right, so I have to make a bold statement here.
Yeah.
Comm has more value than hex.
Oh, you're going to trigger a lot of people on that one.
I'm going to. So I have to say that, and what I mean by that is it tracks the T-share. So the same way that the T-share rate is guaranteed to go up versus hex, comm's value. Now remember, price and value are not the same thing. Okay, so that's an important caveat. But the value of comm goes up versus hex in a 1-to-1 correlation with the T-share rate going up versus hex.
It's kind of making sense why Communis, I don't know if I'm saying it right.
I call it Communis.
Communis.
Actually, I think it is Communis.
Community. It's like a Latin word for community.
Communis. That's better, so people don't think I'm saying communist. It makes sense why on the homepage of their website it's called tokenized shares. Like, I had literally never given much thought to this coin at all. I was just like, oh, free coin you claim with your hex stake. And yeah, I guess it makes, like, tokenized shares, sure, that sounds cool, but I've never really thought about that like until right now. And it is pretty cool. So
yeah, because it's following the T-share rate because of that.
Yeah.
Now, I want to touch on that aspect of it rising in a 1-to-1 correlation with the T-share rate rising versus hex. What that does, the effect that has, is those coupon rates that were on the spreadsheet there. They actually, the backing that I showed was required. That actually gets cheaper to the same degree that the T-share rate rises versus hex. So just to use simple math, right now there's a projection in the T-share rate where the T-share rate should go up another 2x versus hex. So right now we're at about 30,000 hex per T-share.
Yep.
That number should get to about 60,000 hex per T-share in the next, I believe it's 3 to 4 years. And in that scenario, you've cut the required backing in half. So by doubling the price of the T-share versus hex, you have cut the customer acquisition cost in half 3 years from now.
Yeah, because it just comp becomes that much harder to get.
Correct.
Wow.
So if we're looking at those numbers as a customer acquisition cost, which is what I'm looking at this as in its most simplest form, it's just a customer acquisition cost, which means, so really at some point in the chart, we should know what that cost is, and it should almost look like a stable coin versus Hex, where it just stays at, like, if it's 60%, then it's 60%. Okay. Well, we know the backing requirement to create the floor price, but that backing requirement is at the current T-share price. But as that T-share price grows, the backing requirement is actually shrinking at a 1-to-1 ratio with that T-share rate rise.
Hold on, I got distracted by this. What is this, guys? Is this relevant?
Had to deal with, I guess, the slippage you were questioning earlier.
I'm not sure I'm following what's being said there.
You're saying so you can deposit only one asset to a weighted pool, but it should be, yeah.
Okay. So he's saying you can do the single-sided.
Yeah,
I believe that's what he's saying, is you can do the single-sided.
I got
Which is great. That's great. But that's actually a major point, because the reason I brought this up about the T-share rate, and I'm glad you brought that up, Coffee, because I almost forgot about that part, and it's one of the most important parts. But yeah, it's very encouraging to know that you see the current backing cost, and those numbers could look large to you, and you're wondering, well, can we ever get there? But it's nice to know that it gets cheaper over time, and it gets cheaper according to the T-share rate. But what it also does is if you go back to me saying that as the coupon rate rises, it actually calls for a higher allocation of Comm. It actually means that you should be heavily weighting your purchases towards Comm more and more and more as time goes by. The other thing that does is it actually makes short-term staking obsolete if Comm is getting the adoption and the backing. Because what happens is the value of Comm is rising according to the T-share rate. So what that means is if you, for a 1-year stake right now, are making 10% yield, but the T-share rate is projected to go up versus Hex at 15%, then a 1-year stake is now obsolete, because you can get that 15% increase on the Comm side. So that's a very important point, because what this means is, I know everybody's excited about, we're not getting any huge waves of adoption right now, but what that means is our APYs are going up a lot. We're getting all this huge APY because nobody is clogging up the T-shares into the system, so we get to get all this yield. Well, if we start getting a huge increase in stakes because of Comm, and the global average T-share rate is rising, then that means the amount of T-shares in the system is growing, which means the APYs drop. Yeah. However, because of the fact that this Comm makes short-term stakes obsolete according to the rise in the T-share rate versus Hex, it means they should be doing less short-term staking, which means by them buying Comm instead, that Hex becomes liquid instead of staked. And so even though you're getting a growing average stake length and more T-shares in the system on that from the Comm claims, you're also reducing the amount of shares in the system because you've made those short-term stakes obsolete. And so now it should all focus towards the 15-year mark, while being reduced between the 0 to 3 year mark.
As people do this, will people just start to prefer buying Comm over Hex one day because it's gonna?
That's what the optimal allocation calls for.
It just like
for you focusing the energy on Comm.
It just sounds like so bold and paradigm shifting that like it's hard to like take in. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I mean, look. I got the Hex logos behind me, guys.
No, I know
Hex.
You've been around for a while.
But But the reason I can make that bold statement is because it's a true statement according to the math. But I don't want to change the whole. We're still hexagons, okay? But this is why I call it a fusion between hex and comm. We're not dealing with two coins in my mind. In my mind, we're dealing with a fusion of two coins becoming one. And the reason I say that is because even though as you approach the 100% coupon rate with the rising coupon rate, when you get to 100%, it calls for more comm. It calls for comm to overweight, to have more weight in comm than hex, but it never calls for a 0% hex allocation. It's always going to be some hex. And because of that, if all the energy, so right now, let's just look at the amount of volume in hex right now. Right now, today's volume in hex is $2 million. I'm looking at V1 hex pulse, and it's showing $1.9 million of volume, right? I want you to imagine that all of that volume disappeared, and instead of being in hex, it was in comm. What would happen in that event? In that event, all of the hex holders who want to exit, they only have one exit door. And that exit door would be to stake hex for 15 years. Because now that liquidity went to the comm side, and the only way for them to grab that liquidity is to make the 15-year hex stake so that now they can exit on the comm side.
Yeah, that was over my head right there.
So basically I'm saying you have all this liquidity that currently exists in hex. If you just imagine an ideal world where everybody, this whole idea just clicks in everyone's mind immediately, and we're like, light bulbs go off, and all that liquidity that's in hex currently just moves over to comm, where you've literally sent the liquidity of hex on the hex side to zero. Well, guess what? You're still going to get a rising hex price, even though liquidity has gone to near zero. And that's because the people who want to exit, they can't exit by selling the hex. They have to exit by staking the hex. And then the comm that they get, they sell that comm. And that is what that creates, is it creates this situation where there's no liquidity on the hex side, but the hex price still has to rise. And the reason the hex price still has to rise is because any new users coming who want to also claim some comm, they had to buy the hex. And they had to buy it to what degree? To the degree of whatever coupon rate we're at. Right now it's at 5%. That would mean that they had to put 20 times as much money into hex. If it goes to 50%, then they have to put twice as much money into the hex side.
So we just gotta keep buying comm until it gets to 100%. People are always going to arbitrage it down back to 100%, and that's when eventually the hex liquidity will shift towards comm. People will prefer to buy the object at the end of time. Is it actually comm instead of hex?
I know it's a bold statement.
It's just not gonna. It's gonna be hard. I mean, it's really hard for me to process, but I think there's something here. Like, I mean, obviously there is. Like, we just need everybody to start buying comm.
It's just a balanced equation. That's all it is. It's a balanced equation that says if this amount of money comes into this side, you're going to get this much more amount of money coming into the other side.
And I guess I should point out, or at least confirm with you, we're talking about one side of the p-hex side. We have been this entire time. So you want to explain the marketing side of that really quick, Jonni, because I thought it was a very good point at the end of your video that you made. Not to offend E-Hex fans. Maybe you can use E-Hex to buy P-Com. There you go.
That's another question about Ethereum versions as well. But I mean, we don't have to overcomplicate it right now.
Yeah, sure. So for those who were able to make it to the end of my video, I did explain that I think that this, in my closing statements, I said that I believe that this is going to resolve the debate, or at least help resolve the debate between E-Hex and P-Hex. because the answer to that question is going to come down to which one has the bigger marketing budget. I mean, that seems like a pretty easy answer. Is basically if PCOM is the one that has all the liquidity, then that means it has the larger marketing budget for PHEX. But if ECOM is the one that has all the most of the liquidity, then that means that E-Hex has most of the marketing budget. So when it comes down to the focus between the two coins, I can't think of any reasons why you would want to split up your marketing budget. I can't think of why we would want to take one big number and split it in two so that you have two separate marketing budgets for two separate coins. Why not concentrate all that energy into one marketing budget for one coin? This is not the same thing as saying, the energy split between Hex and Hex. I don't think it's the same. I think you have distinguished a product versus its marketing budget. So if you want to think of this as a business, Hex is the product and Comm is the marketing budget. And so why do you want to take your marketing budget and split it up? If you have answers to that,
it seems more likely, obviously, that all the liquidity would accrue on the cheaper chain.
And then,
so yeah, I mean, is that what you're saying? Like, it's probably going to come to the PulseChain side of things? I mean,
yeah, I mean, look, the way that I've set up the backend currently, I set it up for PulseChain.
That's fine. I mean, yeah, that does make. So let's go back to the marketing budget thing, because I think sometimes people, like myself, like I hear it, and then it's hard to find the exact connection between why this is a marketing budget. So people are going to be interested in staking Hex so that they can get Comm, and they look at the Comm that they get as a coupon rate. So that itself is the marketing aspect, right?
Customer acquisition cost.
Yeah. The damn
marketing.
Sure.
It's the marketing and the customer acquisition in one.
It's very interesting. I see what everyone has to say. What is Kodiak? Have you talked to Kodiak? That's a good question.
The question is, have I spoken to Kodiak?
Yeah. Does he?
Yeah, I speak to him quite often. Yeah.
Okay.
We chat.
Cool. Well, dang. Let's see. Comm and Hedron are definitely cash back to stakers. Liquidity providers with Comm don't have a big dump threat from inflation. Yeah, that's true. That part I get. But why Comm though? I'd rather just buy Hex. That's the coin critic.
Yeah, the reason he would say that, it's totally understandable. It goes back to that point of not wanting to be first, but wanting to be next. So as we see the liquidity in the system grow, it's going to become clear and obvious that this thing has a hard time going down in price because the floor pricing is too strong. There's not enough supply to lower the price. We have been in a situation for a long time now where we can see the Hex price going down and down. And there's still plenty of supply, and the relative supply in Hex right now is increasing. It's in a state where it's increasing. And the reason it's in a state where it's increasing right now is because the average stake length is decreasing. And the number of Hex stakes being created is decreasing. I'm going to be putting out more content to kind of demonstrate these talking points here. But the global average stake length decreasing in Hex is creating a situation where the relative supply is increasing on a daily basis or over time. Because of that relative supply increase, it's hard to find the floor on Hex's price right now. But on the Comm side, we are already seeing that it's having a hard time finding supply to sell the price down. So when it comes to the question of why buy Comm versus Hex or whatever, well, once you've seen that the first person came already and did the backing, now you have a cushion that you can sit on the Comm side, where when you buy in, you're buying in at a hyper low risk zone. Okay, and by by doing that, you are you're setting your risk lower than what it would be in Hex. That's just the scenario. I mean, you have an increasing hex supply relative to the current supply because of the lowering average stake length. So why would you want to deal with the side where the supply is increasing instead of dealing with the side where it doesn't have the supply to knock the price down?
Do you recommend buying Comm? I mean, no financial advice. Should people be buying Comm with Hex, or should they be buying it with dollars, or is there a right or a better or worse way or more efficient way to do that?
How much time do we have? Because
I don't know.
Coffee, your question just actually opened up another point that I would have to bring up here because this point is kind of a caveat point.
I've got time. I mean, I'm pretty exhausted, but I've got time for this for sure.
All right. So your question about backing, Comm versus, Hex backing or dollar backing. So dollar backing is always superior. You want dollar backing. That's what you want. Let's pretend like we don't get any dollar backing, and the only backing that we get in the form of liquidity with Comm is just Hex backing only. In that situation, okay, you have created what I would call a dark pattern in this system. Okay. But don't worry, this dark pattern has a very nice silver lining, so no worries. Okay. So the dark pattern is if you have all of this Hex liquidity paired with Comm, then all of the people who make the Hex stakes to mint the Comm and then sell it, they're selling it into Hex, and then when they exit, they're now selling the Hex. So all of that backing that we provided it with becomes sells on the Hex side. And what does that do? That sends the Hex price down a lot. Because right now the 5% coupon rate calls for a 700 million Hex backing. And if we were to get that backing and everybody thought that the 5% coupon rate was so good that they should actually go ahead and mint the Comm to capture that 5%, they would have taken that Hex that the users who originally held it, they weren't selling it. They weren't selling that Hex. But because they've put it up for liquidity to be claimed by Comm, the people who are claiming it, they take it off their hands and they sell it. So what you have now is you have a situation where the Hex price has dropped a lot because of those claims. However, because of Economics 101 that says that, supply and demand, when you have decreasing supply with static or increasing demand, you're going to have a price that goes up. But the scenario that was created by backing the Comm with only Hex and not dollars, which causes them to sell the Hex down, well, in that situation, they still had to stake the Hex first before they came to claim the Comm, which in turn made them claim the Hex. So you have a situation in that point where the Hex price is going down, but the supply is going down as well. And so what happens when you have supply going down while the price is also going down? You're creating a spring on the price.
Yes, I mean, something's got to give.
You're creating a situation where the price is getting low while the supply is also getting lower. And then it's very easy to send that price way up. It's
yeah. You're creating a bottom or whatever.
And the reason that I still think it's important to, even if it creates that scenario, the reason I still think it's important to back it with that is because you're actually expediting this whole bear market situation. Because if it just flushes out quickly and gets it over with, would we prefer that? Like, what if we saw a wick down on the price of Hex right now that just wicked all the way down to the all-time low, but that wick only lasted for 1 day? Would you care?
No, I wouldn't even notice.
Most people would not. Yeah.
So
most Mexicans would not. Yeah.
That's the kind of situation that can occur here, but it would be swift. It wouldn't be some painful 12-month period. I can't imagine in my mind how that would be some very long period of time. It would have to happen quickly in my mind.
Was this idea of yours born out of this long bear market and how we could mitigate that?
No.
Just okay.
No. So actually what happened is that when Comm launched, and I looked at it. Something kept nagging me about that there's something to this. And excuse me. Yeah, something about the coin just kept nagging my mind. And it caused me to just investigate it more. And as I sat down with it, thinking about it, the coupon thing came to me quickly. But what didn't come to me quickly was resolving that into a plan of how we can make this into an automatic marketing. So the automatic marketing didn't even come to my mind. And also the repo market didn't come to my mind. The only thing that came to my mind initially was this is a coupon.
Yeah.
But it took me a long time to wrap my head around, well, what does that mean? Because who cares if you have a coupon rate if nobody's supporting the system? If nobody's going to buy it, so what? But if you can lay out a plan, which is a very simple plan, and I know everyone's saying it's complicated. Don't worry, I'm going to be here for a long time, guys. I'm going to be putting out more content. This is actually simple, and I'm going to make it simple for everybody.
Let's just buy freaking Comm. But I think
the simple statement is buy Comm.
It's going to take repetition, and yeah, I'm glad you're taking the time even right now because yeah, like this is all brand new. Like to me, basically, you know, I brushed Comm off essentially at first, like, oh, it's mildly interesting. Now I'm going to go show my referral link. Actually, yeah, for people that don't know, there's a referral link. 10% referral bonus if you get someone else to claim their Comm. It doesn't cost them anything. It's just 10% extra of whatever they claim for you. I suppose that the referral bonus doesn't really impact too much of the supply, right? Like unless we get some crazy referrals going on.
Well, it's 1% of their shares.
Oh.
So okay. I'm really glad we brought up the referrals because that's the other thing is we now have the referral program reactivated in Hex, and it is activated for the rest of time. This will last forever. So Comm re-enables the referral system. Now, who do you want to be referring? So think about this. Let's say we get to the phase. I would call it the phase of moving into the automatic marketing. Okay. And yeah, Black Pepper there is correct. That's what I was going to get into. So the user who wants to be referring people, who should he be referring? They should be referring big money because they're going to get 1% of whatever that big money is receiving. And so if you have a situation where we have the backing at the 100% coupon rate, then you're going to want to onboard someone with $1 million so that you can get $10,000. And in you doing that, we just created a sales team for Hex.
Bringing the referral program back is awesome. Like, I'm gonna go because I haven't. That money is all just sitting there. Like, I haven't sold a Comm. I'm so glad I haven't. And yeah, it was the best part about Hex that nobody utilized good enough. We all had like that first year, and I'm sure we all wish we did more on that.
But if you think about it collectively, it doesn't really matter, right? We just want the new users. So we only need a sales team of, say, like, I know of some powerhouses over the course of the history of Hex already. I mean, we've got some very good sales folks who are Hexicans. It only takes a few to be onboarding huge amounts of money. Okay, so if we have the backing where we get the liquidity backing at whatever the customer acquisition cost is, and by the way, that customer acquisition cost, it's a speculation until it's not a speculation. Because eventually you just figure out what the customer acquisition cost is because the chart just starts flattening out. You know, the chart just gets to a point where, okay, it just won't move away from 60% coupon rate. Okay, so that's our customer acquisition cost. 60% coupon rate is the customer acquisition cost. And we know that because the price just won't move from the 60%. It's just staying there. Okay, well, now that it's there, these sales people who are sales minded, they get to work and they say, hey, look at this. Hex does a great job paying yield. And for a 15-year stake right now, you can get 60% discount. And if you've got a lot of money, you're going to be making a ton of yield for 15 years. You come and you stake Hex for 15 years, come and claim your Comm back, and use my referral code while you're doing that. Now, if they onboarded a millionaire, $1 million worth, they just made $10,000.
Yeah. Yeah, that kind of storytelling is what makes more sense, right? Like, to me at least, it's like, yeah, you pitch this to somebody as, hey, you might want to stake this. It pays trustless yield, all the same value props as always. I think it's a good time once the bull market finally turns around. We don't have to crash as hard next time. If we have more people locking up for longer, I mean, that was probably the, that's one of the reasons why there's so much dumpage going on. It's so many liquid Hex holders or people nuking and getting out early, not realizing what the T-share is, not realizing like how scarce the T-shares are. So tokenizing them, even for someone that wants to cheat, like even if you get a millionaire on board and he just says, okay, let me dump my 60% coupon of Comm, it's not going much under the current coupon rate. It's going to get absorbed. And because there's such a low supply of Comm to begin with anyway, that's actually dumpable. Is any of that making sense? Okay.
Yeah, I especially like the part where you brought up that somebody should re-buy up the Comm after it's been sent out. Well, so actually that's okay. When somebody comes and this coupon rate, right? It shouldn't be moving around so much, okay? Because when somebody comes to claim the Comm and then they dump it for Hex and then that Hex gets dumped for dollars, what happened to the coupon rate in that scenario? It actually stayed the same. It didn't change. And the reason it didn't change is because they didn't just dump the Comm for Hex. They dumped it for Hex to then exit out into dollars, which actually has the same impact on both sides of the chart. Both charts move together. And because of that, the coupon rate actually stayed the same. So it's kind of a non-issue.
That part is probably the coolest price dynamic.
Yeah. And actually, so it makes it so that because of the T-share rate thing, where T-share rate going up moves up the value of Comm, you shouldn't have to worry about that, because that's where the repo market kicks in, is because the T-share rate is actually handling the repurchasing agreement part. So in a repo market, you have a repurchase agreement that money has to come back when it's lended somewhere. Well, in this, it's not actually a repo market, but it is virtually a repo market. And the T-share rate is what's virtually handling the repayment, the repurchase.
Yeah, the repo thing was always confusing because it's hard to bridge the real world definition.
Well, the simple way to put it would be that person who is trying to sell down Comm for Hex, and then they're trying to just capture more Hex back. That sends the coupon rate down when they do that. If they didn't exit back into dollars, if they exit back into dollars, it actually stays the same. But if they exit into Hex and then just hold the Hex, then it sends the coupon rate down. But the T-share rate promises that coupon rate comes down as well. That the coupon rate goes up because the cost of the backing has been reduced by whatever the T-share rate rose by, and that creates a situation where it is lowering the required value that is backing it over time. So yeah, if you have the liquidity backing it in a way where you have a floor price, then the T-share rate is handling the situation to keep that floor price harder and harder to break.
Right, because it's just become scarcer, like the Comm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is a lot for my peanut brain.
I know you don't have a peanut brain coffee.
No, you do not, sir.
It's a lot because I want to fully understand it, and my gut and like my intuition is like, this is a good idea. Johnny's smart as fuck. Start shilling your referral link right now. I think I'm just gonna like have to go to sleep listening to that 90-minute video like all week, and just think about T-shares and stuff because I gotta get my mind back in all this T-share stuff, man. My mind has been in like liquidity farming, PulseChain, random side circus stuff. This is awesome. I'm glad you're bringing like some potential game theory and like because like look, Hedron was the bond market, and if this can be the repo market, these are like financial primitives that you're building or that you and Kodiak are pushing into Hex. That it seems crazy to me that eventually. So like once the can you go back to that yellow chart sorry, what was that?
I don't think it's that one, but the bigger version.
Yeah.
So like spreadsheet picture.
The spreadsheet picture. Thanks.
Oh, I thought that was on Cabana. Sorry.
No.
Okay.
There you go.
There we are.
So like the adjusted comm allocation will come down, or we'll keep going up. Like if you look at like the coupon rate being 5, but the adjusted comm allocation being 1, that's like a 1-to-5 ratio, and then all the way to 100% coupon rate, it's like it goes down to a 1-to-4 ratio, right? So that's, and then that'll once we get to the 100% coupon rate, it's just going to keep going up. Like the comm allocation, it's going to go beyond 26.
Yes, actually. So what you're looking at here is an adjusted allocation, and it had to be adjusted because of the current state of the system. But this is not what the actual allocation should be. The actual allocation, is what I'm calling the optimal allocation, and that's not showing here. But what the optimal allocation is actually when you're at 100% coupon rate, it calls for 99.99999% allocation into Comm.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to.
Yeah,
which is what you said earlier, but that's what just seems so wild to me.
Yeah. Listen, Comm came out 11 months ago, so this is fair enough, right? Like I'm 11 months ahead.
Yeah. Have you been
I've had to wrap my head around this.
Have you been thinking about this like all this past 11 months?
It's hard to sleep, man, because it's hard to imagine how powerful this thing is, because this is actual innovation in crypto. This is not a joke. This is actual real innovation.
Yeah. Well, you guys were out partying. Johnny was studying the blade. Come on, guys. That's awesome. I brushed it off. I brushed off Comm, to be honest with you. I was like, oh, kind of cool, but not that interesting. So this is definitely pretty awesome, and I think I was wrong.
That's okay, man. Yeah, you're with everybody. I saw all the people who sold. Pretty much everybody.
I'm so happy I didn't, man. I just
same,
because I was just like, well, it's low liquidity, and there could be something here, and I don't know. It's kind of I guess like that gut feeling of maybe there is something. So cool. I don't know what to say, but I just want to start showing. I just want to start telling people maybe it's a good idea to buy a little tiny bit of Comm, and here's my referral link, and then do what you will with that. And then also, to anyone that wants to claim their Comm, well, first of all, you have to make a Hex stake, so there you go. But if you want to cheat out, feel free to get that out of your system very quickly, because we can go up faster that way.
Yeah, and hey, listen, I know this is complicated. So far, it's going to be a lot more simpler over time. I'm going to distill this message a lot with more content. But yeah, we've seen the meme coiners. Their message is just buy the meme coin. Well, why not? Why not just make the message just buy Comm? Just buy Comm.
Yeah.
I guess that was like, I was trying to like just put a bow on it. You can't really do that, obviously, because with something that everyone is still trying to understand. But I was going to say, as my like final question to you, what could the average everyday Hexcan, do to help set the plan in motion? But repeatedly, from what I gather, is buy Comm, basically, is the simplest step that, the first step that we could, say to do.
Yeah, I would have two forms of the message. I would say, Comm's a great coin, buy it. That's the simplest message. And then if you want to deal with a more focused message for someone who actually wants to put more concentration, put more effort into the approach, you just refer to the spreadsheet and you say, we're at a 10% coupon rate right now. Put 3% of your hex in.
Now, is this going to be updated? Will there be a link that people can see an updated version? Like, how often would something like this be updated? Because I think it'd be pretty cool if we, one day we start to get some movement on the comm side to be like, okay, well, where are we at now with this 5% rate and kind of thing? And it would create eyeballs and get people going and be like, oh man, well now, we only need this amount. And so.
So on that point, this is a dynamic thing as more supply comes into the system. However, you can refer to this statically because the only purpose of this spreadsheet here is to get the legacy stakers to exit. Okay, because the legacy stakers are the one holding us back from the 100% coupon rate. Once they're out of the way, then you just follow the allocation. No other thought necessary. There's no other thought required.
And even if you are a legacy staker, you can choose to just hold and diamond hand it and win really hard.
Yeah. So these are maximum numbers. This is based on every single person who can claim also dumps. Literally everybody. So that includes the OAs, stakes that are out there. That includes the God Whale.
Yeah.
That means that everybody is dumping. These are maximum numbers. Wow. So I would actually cut these numbers down significantly. Remember, I already just locked up 15% of the supply.
Yeah, I'd cut them in half or maybe even more than half. So 15% minus, let's say 50%. Like you've only really got like 20% of coins in jeopardy of dumping right now. Yep. Maybe. I don't know. But yeah, Bob Leguy's got kind of a question. I want to go into liquidity pools really quick because, like, let's say I'm someone that wants to provide liquidity on this. It seems easiest for me at this early stage to do 80-20, like 80 hex, 20 comm, just because hex is the brand name, more popular coin. But that also aligns with one of those coupon rate things that we're not quite at yet. Is 75%. There right, which we're not there yet. So like, is it better to try to go just provide liquidity on whatever coupon rate we're currently at and then keep switching it?
Yes, because if you try to jump straight to the 75% coupon rate with the 80% hex, 20% comm, you are basically saying, come dump on my head.
Yeah. Right.
You're putting yourself at high risk.
And I'm not into that kind of thing. I don't like being dumped on. But
no one does. Well, maybe.
So you have to keep switching it as we go up, as we ratchet up.
Yep. And you're forming a team in the process. You're forming a rolling snowball of a team because that liquidity is just going to be harder. And you're not going to there's no reason to just like see the liquidity dropping. It should just be increasing. Why would you ever be dropping that liquidity? Why? So, yeah.
So do you think E-Hex is dead, bro? Just kidding.
No.
You're not dead.
Not dead.
Before I had this idea, I was actually more into E-Hex.
Interesting.
Not more in with my money. My money was even split even.
Yeah.
But like my mind was closer to the E-Hex side before this.
And this is just because everything is so much cheaper and more efficient. It's just easier to pull off on PulseChain. And why try to do it on two chains?
Well, plus the recent actions of like Uniswap and everything going on.
So much bullshit.
Just getting sickening, and it's like, okay, the future is PulseChain. Okay.
Yeah. I was about to do a Rabby wallet tutorial because I think I'm done with MetaMask too. It's just not looking good.
Yep.
Wow. All right, Johnny. Thanks so much. I gotta watch your video on repeat. I'm gonna be following this very closely. I'm a supporter. Even if I only understand like 90% or even less right now, I know this is a good idea.
That's way more than a lot of people, bro. So.
There's still some pieces I just need to like form the narrative better in my head. But yeah, I get it. Like it's a coupon rate. People can get a stake for a certain amount of money off. Essentially, it's like a free stake. And even if they wanted to sell, if liquidity was thick enough, they can't sell. They can't keep the price below the current coupon rate because the price of the T-share keeps going up and it becomes scarcer to mint, harder to mint Comm. And
the liquidity is backing it. That's the key point. The liquidity is there to back it at that coupon rate.
Right.
That's the point.
Yeah, and we have to align that we have to collectively know what coupon rate we're at. So that goes back, I guess, under the banner thing now. So like someone was saying at the very beginning, we need a banner on the Communist website to tell people what coupon rate we're at so they know where to provide liquidity for without being silly. Does that make sense? Like,
right. We're going to need a third-party website because I don't think Kodiak would want to put pricing.
No financial advice.
Right. So we're going to need some. There's no hurry here, right? We're going to have to progress with this plan, right, over time. But yeah, that we need more resources to be able to refer to the changing dynamics here, even though those changing dynamics are a lot more static than you would think. Yeah. And just, I don't know if you want to just quickly put up that chart, Cabana, of, oh, actually, I'm going to do it. I keep forgetting this is my screen to control. But yeah, so these horizontal lines that I have on the chart represent the path to the 100% coupon rate on the chart right now. So right now we're okay, you can see my mouse there. Right now we're at the 5% range, between 5% and 10%. Now you can see on the chart that we wicked all the way up to 30%. So that's showing you how easy this is to send up. If somebody wanted to send it up.
And every time that happens, if we get like a generous, benevolent God whale to do these little spikes, it just rinses out non-believers.
Correct. So, absolutely.
That's really nice.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to do that though.
I did it for you, man.
You're not the hero we deserve. You're the hero we need.
There are some hex whales out there that could do plenty of fun things with this, but yeah, it is exciting to think about. Well, gents, I guess we can at least put a bow on this for now.
This is the new meme coin.
Yeah, everybody look
9inch.io.
It's just that it's not going to wear off because it's just going to keep going up.
Right. A meme coin with staying power. And
correct.
Yeah. And it's tied to hex, which you know has staying power. I mean, look at us now. We're still talking about it almost 4 years later. So
there you go. Hey, quick round around the room. Johnny, man, where can we find you? It's your name on your YouTube channel, your Twitter, is that right?
That's right. So I've now got a brand new YouTube channel that I'll be putting more videos up on. So in my name,
go like and sub that, and make sure you'll, obviously Johnny's going to have plenty more content on the way regarding all this. So definitely like, subscribe, like.
And then Twitter at Jonni Saks.
Boom. Coffee, I think everybody knows, but chill it real quick.
Oh, the main thing right now is to go sign pulsepetition.org. I think we can actually have a legitimate say in what the potential outcome of the SEC versus Richard Hart case could be. And this is what's within our control. It takes you literally 1 minute out of your day. It does
closing in on 5,000 signatures too. So
yeah, you guys blew me away already. I thought it was going to be a struggle to get to 1,000. It's 3 days later, and I've only done a couple of tweets and videos, and the whole community is amplifying this way louder than me. So I'm pretty high off of that right now. I'm very pleased with how everything's going on that end. And, obviously this is something separate from Richard's own defense and fighting and whatever he's going to do. But this could really set a landmark precedent in the courts. And it could be like dropping a nuke in terms of, the amount of signatures that they might be surprised that they're affecting this many thousands of people and their individual freedom, not only in America, but across the world. So wherever you live, takes a couple of minutes. I've been getting not a lot, but the main concerns are around doxing yourself. And yes, it does require personal information, but this is like sticking your neck out on the line for your ideals, right? So to paraphrase Richard, it's like, if you could have done something about it and you chose not to, it's kind of your fault. Nicknames are a thing, but they're not encouraged. PO boxes are a thing, but they're not encouraged. To try to be a real person, but there are ways to get around I'm not telling anyone what to do, but there are ways to get around doxing yourself completely.
Absolutely. I've seen that as like one of the pretty much the number one concern.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is very, very relevant. And we'd all know friends, family who are pro crypto and may not have the ability to fill one of these things out. So help them out.
Right. Yeah. And it's everyone that would be affected by this, not only as a holder of Hex, PulseChain, or PulseX, but just as an investor in crypto or a believer in free speech in general. That's all you really have to be. Not necessarily standing outside your local Walmart and just getting total randos, but anybody that's involved in the space or has a similar ideology, that in the very, very slight chance that they would audit the list of people and maybe give you a phone call and say, hey, did you sign this petition? At the very least, just make sure the people signing would be willing to pick up the phone and say, yep, that was me. Thanks. Have a nice day. They're not going to do any more than that. I can't believe we're almost at 5K. Thank you, guys. And go buy Comm, not financial advice. Getcommcoin.com. If anybody wants, I'm a shameless shill my referral link. If anybody's still here listening, God bless you for
God whale. Listen to Coffee's link.
God will. If I've ever provided any value to you, sir, please consider using getcommcoin.com to get. It doesn't cost you anything. It just gives me a little extra comm when you claim your free comm that you get from having a hex stake already, which I know a lot of people do out there. So don't sleep on comm, everybody. It could be a sleeping giant here.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Don't sleep on it. Don't dump on it.
Or dump. Just get it out of your system.
Or I mean, dumping could be good. The sooner the better. But yeah,
I say awesome. Get out now. Get out of the way now. Let's go to 100% coupon rate after you're out of the way. Let's do it.
Boom. Well, good stuff, guys. It was just like 2 hours of just straight knowledge, mostly from Jonni. Thank you for all the awesome questions, Coffee, and there's so much more I think that's just ahead in this. It's going to be just really exciting to keep up with this. Again, Jonni's got his 90-minute video that introduced this whole thing, so be sure to watch that in its entirety. Maybe put it on 1.25, 1.5, to speed it up a little bit. But at the same time, there's a lot in there, so it depends upon how much content you can consume.
To come.
Yeah. So awesome stuff. Thank you guys for taking the time to do this. This is really exciting to have I don't know, just another RH ecosystem coin that could just boost the entire thing.
Game over, guys.
I'm so happy Comm matters. I totally wrote it off.
Yeah, I'm so glad, like you, that I just kept it in my wallet, and I was like, maybe something cool will happen with it one day. Well, we might be witnessing that, coming to fruition. So
we're reviving Hex with a vengeance, guys. That's what we're doing. We're coming after Eric Wall. That's what we're doing.
I'm glad we have people like you and Kodiak, dude. Thanks for taking the time.
Yes, sir.
Amen. So much. I really appreciate it.
All right, thanks, guys. Peace.